Ladies and gentlemen, Palantir Technologies is likely going to have another green day by the end of this trading session, testing very key resistance points that we've seen formed after earnings were released. This is the $19 price target. And if we are able to overcome this level and turn this into a support level, that next level is $20. And a breakout zone above that could bring Palantir to new 52-week highs, since that is the year-to-date high. Now, what we do have is a little bit of an interruption for Palantir Technologies. Jim Cramer releases a statement saying that he is basically bullish on Palantir now. Will the inverse Jim Cramer theory strike again and bring down Palantir right when things were getting juicy? We're going to be talking about it, talking about Palantir price targets, what we could be seeing in the short term and in terms of the long term, and this key price that everybody is keeping their eyes on. Of course, if you're new to the channel or a returning viewer, thank you guys so much for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and of course, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just collecting all the data, analyzing it, and dispatching it to you. Now, talking about Palantir, let's bring it up on the screen and see where we are in terms of trading. Right here before market close, we're seeing this next rally and a little bit of a test up here, trying to hit this $19 level of resistance. If we go back here just a few days after those earnings were released and we saw them immediately destroy expectations, and we saw a big rally as even guidance was improved for the fiscal year 2024, what we do have is this $19 level of resistance that has been formed, and over the previous few days has been tested 3 times. Palantir drops here in yesterday's trading session, tests and basically gets a little bit of a rebound and a reversal at a support level here at $18, and today in the trading session actually breaks out and holds above that 19 just for a little bit, but it fails to break out past that resistance point, and we're seeing a little bit of a pullback. However, a rally right now as we speak, possibly going to hit that $19 by the end of the trading session as volatility is starting to pick up. These are with trading volumes cooling off a little bit at about that 50 million, which is around its average that we've seen. This is great that we're seeing Palantir continue to close in the green, up about 2% right now as we speak, even though we're seeing trading values starting to come down a little bit. What's really important before we get into the news about Palantir is the $20 level of resistance. And if Palantir is able to overcome this 19, what we see here is this $20 area. Now, if you are newer to Palantir, this was right before last quarter earnings were reported, and we saw an immediate 25% correction here as these basically earnings were in line. In Palantir right here at the 2024, this is the 52-week year-to-date high, and could be a breakout zone if Palantir is able to overcome and beat this $19 level of resistance, and then of course overcome that 20. Now, those are big expectations for Palantir, which is why I think possibly we could see a short-term drawback or a little bit of a correction with some profit taking, considering it's up about 30% on the week. You can see this large gap was formulated here, and this has not been tested or basically needs to close in the short term. Now, of course, this could continue to go against my expectations. Palantir is still continuing to beat against my expectations as it hasn't pulled back at all yet. But what we do have is Jim Cramer come here basically saying, will he, looking at Palantir, saying that this was a dynamite quarter, we got an upgrade, I disliked these guys for a long time, not anymore, and saying that he is on the Palantir team, which is funny because he hated PLTR when it was at $8, but now he's on the team at these nearly 52-week year-to-date highs at the $18 level. And when you have the inverse Cramer theory coming in, you have Twitter right now that's calling for shorting Palantir stocks after Cramer's comments. So talking about the price analysis and for where we are right now, could this be the downfall of Palantir in the short term? Now, there's a lot of jokes that come along with this, but if you actually look into the research and look into previous trading histories and price targets with Jim Cramer, there are this inverse theory hypothesis that have been supported, and there has been correlation in the past. But let's talk about really important here. Looking not into the short term, which we could possibly see a little bit of a pullback, but looking into the long term, which I think is a lot of people that are watching are these long-term Palantir bulls. And that is focusing on the $20 price, and why this is not just a physiological $20 level of resistance, but also a psychological, because this is the next incremental step for when Palantir can not only surpass, like I said, the year-to-date highs, but also getting into these newer territories where Palantir has not had a ton of trading history, formulating these levels of support. So an issue to possibly consider with Palantir is where is a lot of the majority of revenue coming from? And what we're seeing and what we saw in last quarter's earnings was an increase in the commercial clients, which is great because this shows diversification, but a little bit of a reduction in the actual governmental contracts. And that's okay in terms of revenue coming through because the CEO, Karp, even admitted that it's just a lumpy business. And that is, things in the government do move slow. And just basically referring to the challenge of securing public sector contracts, and they should watch for stronger government revenue growth from Palantir Technologies in the coming quarters. So that could be one issue that could be a culprit for Palantir success in the future, not because this is a bad thing, I think, for the company, but because Palantir has really relied on government revenue in terms of a fundamental revenue income for their business. And we've seen this in the years past for Palantir, that the government revenue has been the majority of their revenue maker. But now what we're seeing with Palantir is it actually a diversification and a growing into these different types of clients. And this is the capturing of the AIP bootcamp. And the commercial customer count has exploded by over 10x in the last 3 years. And this is great because with the AIP bootcamp, people can actually trial this for complete free. It's a free trial, and they claim that they can get you a 0 to a use case within 5 days. So great to see that this tactic and this business tactic is actually working for Palantir as they predict this growth should continue. Moving on to U.S. commercial revenue and customer account, this increased by 33% and 37% year over year. So the commercial revenue growth also increased by 23%. So in terms of a customer perspective, in terms of that sector, we're seeing not just revenue increase, but also customers coming to the table. And this is great because this helps with future predictions on Palantir, which are quite bullish. Looking into the next decade right here, you can see these are, of course, projections. Things can always be subject to change due to macroeconomic tensions, many other different types of regulations, especially what AI is going to have in terms of regulation in the future. But with Palantir looking in the future, you're seeing revenues that could be up to $10 billion by 2030, and earnings per share is up over $1 as we're seeing an increase of profitability across Palantir. And looking into that, Palantir also has the criteria for meeting the S&P 500 inclusion. And why this is really important, especially for the maturity of a company, and Palantir being a leading competitor in the AI industry, is that it helps bring more stability to its price metrics because you have a lot of indexes that track and ETFs that track the S&P 500. And Palantir being included in that is now a possibility. Considering the company's earnings for the last 4 quarters, they must set a net positive, and they've had 4 quarters of GAAP profitability. And what we can see is that Palantir has generated a total of $148 million in net income, talking about this in the most recent earnings that were released. So talking about the S&P 500, we'll be keeping an eye on that, but I don't think that is the main culprit for PLTR. We should also be looking at its cash flow, and what it does have is a lot of cash on hand, over $3 billion to be exact. So with great financials here and trailing into the following year, this rally that we're seeing right now among the markets could possibly push Palantir over the 19s and into the 20s. I still do think we will have a short-term correction for Palantir. We've seen a large increase in a high greed among the actual buying pressure for Palantir. This is still, I think, in my opinion, a great long-term stock. I think we're just going to have a pullback, and if people are new to Palantir or looking on the sidelines, sitting on the watch list, I think there could be possibly more attractive prices to get a higher return in getting in at a lower dollar cost average. Now, with that being said, there's lots of other stocks that we need to start keeping an eye on. We saw many different things, such as Datadog even, and different AI data analytics companies that are exploding in terms of their valuations as they are starting to beat earnings. So I think we do have a revolutionary AI industry among us. The question is, what are going to be the best stocks going forward? I think Palantir is definitely going to be one of them, as they've already proven to be a leader here. But what are the other ones that are going to be really critical? I think we should start a discussion, start making videos on some of these other AI stocks, not just doing Palantir over and over again. Yes, of course, keeping with Palantir videos, by diversifying and talking about some other AI stocks that you guys are interested in. So if you have some that you want to talk about, leave it down in the comments. Let's start a discussion. What do you think of these videos? And of course, I appreciate all the feedback that you do give me. So thank you guys so much. Peace out. Take care, and I'll catch you guys later.